Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead Season 6. And what this video is going to be doing is giving my review for the most recent episode, which is Now. It was the 5th episode of the season. I thought it was actually pretty good. You know, we had 3 back-to-back episodes of just intense action. And then we had the Morgan episode, and now we had an episode where we're back to the present, we're seeing how things are, and we actually get to delve into the characters a lot this episode, which was something that I enjoy. Because when you have a lot of action, as much as I like the action, and as much as I, really do enjoy the tense, on the edge of your seat moments on Walking Dead, I do also enjoy those times when we can delve into the characters, see how they're feeling, see how they're interacting, and their thoughts on, their situation, which I really enjoyed in this episode. So I'm going to let you know what happened. If you are not caught up with Walking Dead, if you have not seen this episode, then I suggest you not watch the video because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So the episode, takes place right after where Morgan's present part ended, where we hear Rick screaming. And we actually see right before that where Deanna is, she's still unfortunately in a very sad state. I think that she's in a state of anomie. She just feels lost. She definitely, I think, throughout this episode we get the impression that, she really is, feeling guilty about a lot of the things that have happened in Alexandria, and a lot of people unfortunately remind her of that in this episode. And of course, couple that with dealing with the loss of her husband Reg and her son Aiden, and that really, adds to the trauma that she's experiencing. She spends most of the episode in a state of constant, shock, wide-eyed, deer in the headlights look. But she does have some moments in the episode. But she's standing on the wall looking at, the first panel that was put up with Reg's name on it. And we also see that Michonne is telling Maggie about Glenn, that, Glenn was left behind, and they have no idea what happened to him. Well, we don't actually find out how Rick escaped, because when we last saw him, he was trapped in the RV and there were walkers starting to, converge on the area. I'm just going to assume that he ran out the door, shoved a couple of walkers, and just ran, Well, we would have liked to have seen that, would have liked to have seen the great escape, but, alright, I'll settle for just a magical escape. Rick Grimes is, after all, the main character, so obviously he can't die. So Rick ends up running to the wall with the herd of walkers right behind him. So he led the herd back to Alexandria. But, it really wasn't his fault. I mean, a lot of other things, led to that moment with the horn being blown and the walkers leaving the herd itself. And only half of them actually, come to the wall, but that's kind of an understatement because half is like a couple thousand, it seems, walkers outside the wall. But Rick is able to make it to safety, but now Alexandria is surrounded by walkers. The walkers end up, stand up against the wall and are, staying there. And Rick basically gives a speech when he comes back. He notes that he knows that everybody's probably afraid right now, but, that they're going to be all right, that they're going to figure something out, that he believes that Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham, because they're, of course, still dealing with the other half of the herd, that after they take that herd out, that they're going to come back. And, of course, when they come back with the vehicles, they could try the same plan again to draw all the walkers away. So, Rick tells people to stay hopeful. But we notice that, with the walkers outside the wall and with Alexandria just suffering the attack by the wolves, not a lot of people are very hopeful, and we see various individuals reacting in different ways. We have Aaron, who actually just comes out and admits, that he's to blame for the wolves attacking, that the wolves ended up coming into the area because of him, and, he left the pictures behind, and as a result, the wolves were able to find Alexandria. So he really does blame himself for that one. And that's something that's definitely going to haunt him, I think, for a while. And he even says about, that that's something that he's going to have to live with. We also have Jessie, who, at the start of the episode, she wanted to bury the wolf that she killed in JSS, but Rick said, no, don't bury her. That they don't bury killers within the walls. That's a policy that they have. They weren't going to let Pete, get buried in Alexandria, and they're not going to let somebody like the wolves get buried either. I don't blame them. But as a result of everything going on, people in the community are starting to panic. We have, uh, you know, the group basically going to the pantry, and they just want to take all the food because, well, what's the point? If they're just going to die, eventually they may as well, get one last good feed in. That was a lot of what they were thinking. And Olivia's trying to stop them, but the group starts to go in and starts to just gather up all the food items that they want. And then Spencer, Deanna's son, actually comes in, and Deanna was standing there, but she doesn't do anything. But Spencer basically tells everybody, that they need to keep the hope up, that because of him, he looks at himself as a hero, and people do, admit that what Spencer did was heroic, him shooting the driver of the food truck, because if he wouldn't have done that, then the truck might have smashed through the wall, and, maybe the walkers would be inside right now. So, he basically tells everybody, that he saved the fence, that they're going to be safe, and that if they do this, if they just start to panic and freak out and steal all the food, then they're basically just destroying the community. That the community that they've loved and that they want to have will be gone, and he doesn't want to see that happen. He wants to see the community continue. And everybody, buys into that. They're like, oh yeah, he's right. So they don't raid the cabinets. And, well, Spencer's a little bit of a hypocrite, you hate to say. But what ends up happening is Deanna goes back to her house and starts to draw up plans for planting some crops, and she finds Spencer has been drinking, and finds out that he actually did take supplies from the pantry. He took a bunch of food items when he's the one preaching, hey, don't do this because we need to survive and everything. And Deanna's like, what are you doing? Like, you just told everybody not to do this. Why are you doing this? And Spencer just equates it to, hey, he believes that what he said was a crock of, baloney. He was just speaking words because, his idea was, hey, I think everybody was right. There is no hope. There's walkers outside the walls and we're all going to die. So I may as well just get one more, good night of, a lot of food and alcohol because, hey, I gave us this extra night by shooting the truck driver. So he really, was just being a, a hypocrite. That's really the word that I can come up with. And whenever he's talking to Deanna, he ends up putting a lot of this on Deanna. He said that really the one that should be blaming themselves for anything is Deanna because of the way that she is, led the community and the way that she structured it, not really exposing them to the walkers and keeping them behind the walls and trying to have them live civilized. Spencer basically just blames her for everything that happened, saying, hey, maybe if you wouldn't have done this, maybe we could have, ended up being more prepared and maybe this wouldn't have happened. And that really is something that upsets Deanna. It really is something that she takes a little bit hard on, to accept because, he ends up Spencer points out that Aiden and Reg died and kind of throws it on her. Now, I wouldn't say that it's all her fault, but I can understand, why she would feel guilty about that. Absolutely. We also have things going on with Carl in the episode. Carl realizes that, of course, Enid is out there because she went over the walls after the events of JSS, and nobody knows where she's at. And Carl goes and talks with Ron and says, "Hey, Ron, do you care that Enid's over there? She might be in trouble." And Ron just kind of has this "I don't care" attitude. He basically says that Enid's on her own. She went over the wall. He told her not to do it, and the fact that she doesn't want to listen, um, and she put herself in danger, that's her problem. And Carl's really upset that he feels that way, that's his girlfriend. Why would he be saying that? But, Ron basically says, "No, I'm not going to go look for her, and you're not either," because Carl wants to go over the wall and look. Well, Carl walks away, and Ron ends up going after him and shoves him, and the two end up getting into a shoving match, over everything. And what ends up happening is Carl shoves Ron on the ground pretty hard. And we have Ron basically looking at Carl and saying, "Hey, if you go over, I'm going to tell your dad, that you're going to do this." And he equates this to, "Hey, you saved my life when the wolf tried to kill me, and now I'm saving your life because I'm not going to let you go over the wall and put yourself at risk." So he equates it to, this is his way of paying Carl back for what Carl did for him. And, earlier in the episode, we start to see a little bit of signs from Ron really about, maybe more of how he's feeling because, later on in the episode, he ends up going on the wall with Rick. And, Rick is basically guarding the wall and also looking to see if Glenn or Daryl or Sasha and Abraham are coming back, if there's a sign or anything. And, Ron tells Rick, "Yeah, you were right. I wasn't prepared, and you were right about that. So, I apologize for what I did at the quarry." And he actually asks Rick to show him how to shoot, and Rick ends up giving over his, Colt Python. He takes the bullets out to show Ron basically how to aim and everything with the gun. But earlier in the episode, you see that Ron was, gripping onto his knife when Rick was talking to the community. So it really makes you wonder if there's some underlying aggression issues there with Ron, and maybe he's planning something. I'll go more into that in a later video, but, that kind of was a little telling. Maybe that Ron is planning something. So guess we'll see what happens. We have some things going on with Denise in this episode. Denise is caring for Scott, and if you remember, Denise is the new doctor of Alexandria. She's played by Merritt Weaver. Scott was, of course, wounded in the leg in the third episode, Thank You. And I guess that when they got back to the community, he fell unconscious, and his wound is infected. And Denise, of course, her abilities and her, confidence are very much, down. She doesn't really have a lot of confidence in herself. And, she's reading books, and Tara comes in and, basically tells her, that it's okay to be afraid and that she's going to be there for her. You see the two of them really connecting. And, later on in the episode, Denise drains the some of the infected pus from Scott's wound, and his heart monitor goes back down to normal. So maybe that's a good sign, and that really boosts Denise's confidence. And she actually goes and finds Tara and gives her a kiss on the lips, which may indicate that maybe the two of them will be forming a relationship in this season. This will be a little interesting, to see if that's what's happening. Love in the zombie apocalypse is definitely something that is, good as a storyline. And of course, we know that Tara is a lesbian. Now, in the comics, Denise is not. She actually gets in a relationship with Heath in the comics. Now, that's not to say that they won't change that for the TV show. We've seen various different characters that took on different races. Bob in the comics is white, and in the TV show he's African American. And we see if characters have changed genders, Douglas to Deanna. So it's not out of the ordinary that a character's sexual orientation may be different. So that'll be interesting to see if they explore that, and to see, was that actually a "hey, I like you" kiss, or was that just a "thank you, Tara, for everything that you did back there"? Because what Denise says afterwards is, hey, yeah, it's not the end of the world, or, she's worried about that, but I don't think that she wants to let an opportunity pass. So I think there might be some potential in their future. That'll be interesting to see, and, if it happens, I'm looking forward to seeing the development of that. We also have a part where a person inside Alexandria, I think, kills herself because Jesse's walking by the house and a walker appears at the window, but it looks like this is a fresh walker, somebody who recently died, and I think that it was somebody who slit their wrist or took pills or something. But Jesse ends up stabbing the walker in the eye and then turns around to the community members and basically gives them an inspiring speech. There were a lot of speeches in this episode. Jesse admitting, that she used to not want to look at the, what was present in front of her. She didn't want to reveal the truth, and that's how she felt about this, apocalypse. She didn't really want to realize that there were all these dangers out there, but she tells everybody that they have to look past that now. They need to stop, pretending that this is, a nice, great, normal world and actually fight or they're going to die. So she really does, give some confidence to people as well. We also have Maggie, of course, who wants to go out and look for Glenn, or she wants to know the truth. She wants to know, is Glenn alive or did he actually die, in Thank You? And there's a way out of the community through the sewers that Aaron used to use, and the two of them go down there to try to see if they can get past the wall and the walkers. And while they're going down there, they end up running into some trouble. They pull a vent off of one of the sewer pipes, and it ends up cutting Aaron right on the head, and, he's bleeding very profusely. And then they're attacked by these disgusting walkers that have been down there for a while. They were literally saturated with, the water and the waste that has been going down there. And literally Maggie is actually able to, put her hand through the walker's body. I mean, that was just disgusting, man. I mean, I think that's one of the most disgusting walker kills I have ever seen, or walkers in general. I might do a top 10 most, disgusting walkers, but I think that ranks up there very, very much. But that was just crazy. But they end up making it to the pipe, and they find out that they're not far enough. They can't go out. And, this really disappoints Maggie. She's upset because, she vowed to never leave Glenn's side again. Back in season 4, she burned that picture, and that's something that she feels very guilty about because, it was like their last memory of each other. I think it reminded her a lot of Glenn in that moment, because it was kind of ironic because the picture was of Maggie, so I don't really understand why that would make a difference to her unless it was the memory itself, or that might have been a goof by Walking Dead. I'm not sure, but she burned that picture and she feels guilty about it. And then you also have, the fact that she doesn't know, and she reveals she is pregnant. That is true. She is pregnant with Glenn's child, and that's part of the reason why she stayed back. But that's something that she feels guilty about, because maybe if she would have went with Glenn, then maybe she could have helped. And I can understand where Maggie is coming from. Not knowing the truth, I think, is harder than knowing the truth. And I think that that's going to eat away at Maggie until we find out one way or the other whether Glenn has lived or whether he has died. But they keep up the hope, and they end up wiping Glenn's name off of the wall, because earlier in the episode, the community members were writing the names of the deceased residents on the wall, and they put Glenn's name on there, but the two of them end up wiping it off. They say, hey, we're not going to, lose hope at this point. So that was really nice to see. Maybe a little hint that Glenn is still alive. Hey, I'm holding out hope for him. We also have a walker actually attacks Deanna in this episode. If you remember in JSS, right after Carol made it to the weapons room in Alexandria and found Olivia, she shot one of the wolves, but the wolf basically got away. But he got wounded several times in the torso. Well, it turns out the wolf did die and came back as a walker and attacks Deanna, and Deanna just smashes a bottle and just stabs the living daylights out of it, in the stomach everywhere, and Rick actually comes to her rescue. And, Deanna tells Rick that she wants Alexandria to survive and flourish, but she believes that that will only happen if Rick is in charge. So this is really a very important scene, because in the comics, Deanna does Douglas hands over leadership to Rick, and we see this happening now with Deanna. So I think that it's very, very, game changing, and this may be the opportunity for Rick to step up. We also have Rick and Jesse having a little bit of a moment. Jesse was having trouble with Sam earlier in the episode. Sam won't come down from the upstairs part of the house. He's just too afraid. And, Jesse's basically out in the garage and, is basically losing hope as well, really wondering if her words really are weighing, in an important fashion. And, she tells Rick that she wants to believe that there's a future, and asks that Rick, show her. And, you have Rick also losing a little bit of hope because he didn't want to get rid of the bodies until he saw Glenn and Daryl and Sasha and Abraham come back. And he's now losing hope that, maybe they won't be coming back. And that's something that is worrying him as well. So you have both of them really losing hope at this point. And, really it drives them together, this opportunity to maybe, feel something or maybe feel that there is a future, and they end up kissing, again, in a very passionate manner. So, whether that will lead to more, I guess we may find out in the future if they're laying in bed together, but, this may signal something going on with Rick and Jesse, so I thought that was really nice. And finally, the episode ends with Deanna going up to the gate and smacking the gate, with the walkers. I think, just frustrated and angry that they're outside, and that's her way of taking out her anger. And as she's walking back, there's a crack forming in the wall. So we may see, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see walkers breach the perimeter of Alexandria, and we'll have to see what happens. But with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if there are any suggestions that you have for future videos, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.